There are 11 wizarding schools in the Harry Potter universe. And look, I know most of you can't name more than 3. The oldest, the largest, and probably the most powerful of them all is not Hogwarts. It's a school carved into a mountain in Uganda, where 14-year-olds turn into elephants. Nobody needs a wand, and your acceptance letter shows up inside your dreams. Just a figure that appears in your dream and leaves an inscribed stone token in your hand. You wake up and the stone is there, for real. This is UAGADOU. Rowling wrote, in no uncertain terms that much, and maybe all magic in the wizarding world, originated in Africa. Wands? Over here they use wood for campfires. UAGADOU students cast spells by pointing a finger. At Hogwarts and most of the wizarding world that's considered extremely advanced magic. But at UAGADOU, that's what you learn before lunch on day 1. It's like showing up to an F1 race in your souped-up Honda and realizing everyone else is running on foot and faster than you. One time, the school team showed up at an international symposium of animagi and did synchronized transformations, teenagers shifting into elephants and cheetahs at the same time, and nearly caused a riot. A British wizard named Adrian Tutley, animagus form, a gerbil, filed a formal complaint because he felt threatened. A grown man in the wizarding world felt threatened by teenagers. UAGADOU has so much lore, it could fill an entire video, while the next school has exactly one canonical fact. KOLDOVSTORETZ. This is the Russian wizarding school, and that's basically all we know about it. No founder, no location, no headmaster. Rowling never wrote even a single essay about it on Pottermore. It showed up in a video game in 2013 and a special edition of the books in 2014, and then total silence. The name comes from Russian koldovstvo, meaning sorcery, and probably dvorets, meaning palace. Heavy name for a school its own creator seems to have forgotten she made. The only confirmed fact we have is this. Instead of broomsticks, KOLDOVSTORETZ students play Quidditch flying on entire trees ripped from the ground. Forget your Nimbus 2000. Imagine some guy riding a pine tree, roots and all. How that works aerodynamically, nobody knows. How that works under Quidditch regulations, nobody knows. Rowling dropped that fact into the world, never touched it again, and probably never will. All of Wizarding Russia reduced to trees instead of brooms, and nobody at the publisher thought that needed more context. We barely know anything about KOLDOVSTORETZ. But what if I told you there's a school where we know the color of the students' moral underwear? MAHOUTOKORO is the school of Japan. The name of this one means magic place in Japanese. So the full translated name is Magic Place School of Magic. Real creative, right? It's the smallest school of the 11, a palace of translucent white jade sitting on top of a volcanic island. Kids here start at 7 years old, 4 years before Hogwarts. And since they don't board until 11, they commute every day riding giant storm petrels over the open Pacific. 7-year-olds on giant birds over the ocean, and you thought Hogwarts horseless carriages were a big deal. And Quidditch here is a whole different beast. The Toyohashi Tengu are the reigning league champions, and students train over open sea in storm conditions, dodging bludgers and fighter jets from a Muggle military base on a neighboring island. Quidditch with the risk of a mid-air military collision. The wildest part of this school is the robes. Every student gets an enchanted robe that changes color as you progress, starts pale pink, gradually deepens, and reaches gold when you ace everything. So far so good, but if you practice the dark arts, your robes turn white in front of everyone. And in Japanese culture, white is the color of funerals. White robes mean immediate expulsion and a criminal trial. No warning. No second chance. Your clothes rat you out before you open your mouth. It's like that Black Mirror episode where everyone rates each other with buttons, except here the ratings are automatic. If you thought it was already wild that your clothes snitch on you for going to the dark side, in Brazil they send curses through the mail when they're mad. CASTELOBRUXO, it's the wizard school of Brazil. And I actually love this one because the name is literally Castle Wizard. That's it in Portuguese. No metaphor, no fancy Latin, nothing. It's like if Hogwarts was just called Magic School and everyone acted like that was fine. It's hidden in the Amazon rainforest and looks like a massive golden stone temple. To any non-magical person walking by, it just looks like a pile of ruins. Exactly like Hogwarts. Rowling made a point of writing that nobody knows who copied who, which is the most British way of saying we copied it, but we're not gonna admit it. The school specializes in herbology and magizoology, which makes sense. It's sitting in the middle of the largest forest on the planet. And they're so good at it that Hogwarts actually uses a textbook written by one of their alumni, Libatius Borage, that is the author of Advanced Potion Making. The British school literally studies from Brazilian material. The campus is guarded by kaipora. If you don't know what those are, think gremlins, but Brazilian. When headmistress Benedita Dorado visited Hogwarts and headmaster Dippet complained that Peeves was out of control, she laughed and offered to send some Kaipora to the Forbidden Forest to show you what real trouble looks like. The Brazilian headmistress heard Hogwarts' problems and thought they were cute. You know Bill, Ron's older brother. He had a pen pal at CASTELOBRUXO. The family couldn't afford the exchange trip, and his quote-unquote friend got so mad he sent Bill a cursed hat that made his ears shrivel up. So yeah, CASTELOBRUXO students send curses through the mail when they're upset. Sensitive bunch, huh? Okay, a cursed hat is funny. The story of how the next school was founded is not, and is probably the darkest thing Rowling has ever written. ILVERMORNY. So everyone thinks ILVERMORNY is just the American Hogwarts and that's it. The founding story of this school is heavier than anything that ever happened at Hogwarts. It starts with an Irish girl named Isolde Sayre, direct descendant of Salazar Slytherin through the Gaunt family. Same bloodline that centuries later produces Voldemort. When she was 5, her aunt Gormleth Gaunt, a pureblood fanatic, murdered both her parents and took Isolde to raise in total isolation. 12 years living like a wizarding world Rapunzel. No school, no friends, nothing. Gormley thought Hogwarts was dangerously egalitarian and full of mudbloods. Isolde escaped by stealing her aunt's wand. And here's the thing, that wand was secretly the original wand of Salazar Slytherin with a basilisk horn core, but Isolde had no idea. She disguised herself as a muggle boy, boarded the Mayflower in 1620, and fled to America. Yeah, the Mayflower. The girl who founded the American Wizarding School came on the same ship as the Puritans. On Mount Greylock, she rescued 2 orphan brothers whose parents had been killed by a hide-behind, married a no-mage stonemason named James Stewart, who she kept planning to obliviate every day but kept putting it off until she just admitted she was in love, and founded Ilvermorny, modeled after Hogwarts because the boys insisted. 4 houses, Horned Serpent, Wampus, Thunderbird, and Pukwoodgi. Years later, Gormleth came for her, crossed the ocean, cursed Isolde and James into an enchanted sleep, and used a Parseltongue command that deactivated Slytherin's wand, a kill switch that Slytherin himself had built in, and Isolde never knew existed. The 2 adopted sons, 16 and 14 years old, fought Gormleth alone, while James stood in front of the couple's 2 baby daughters, ready to die. Then a Pukwoodgi named William showed up on the windowsill and shot Gormleth through the chest with a poisoned arrow. Her body shattered into pieces. Slytherin's wand was buried in the garden and grew into an unknown species of tree with healing properties. That one was heavy, right? The next one is the opposite, or at least that's what it looks like from the outside. BEAUXBATONS. Okay, first thing that needs to be said. BEAUXBATONS is not an all-girls school. The movies made that up. In the books, a dozen boys and girls step out of the carriage, and a BEAUXBATON boy actually dances with Parvati Patil at the Yule Ball. Nobody remembers that. But it's there. The school is somewhere in the Pyrenees, in a palace that makes Hogwarts look like a parking lot. Wood nymphs sing during meals, ice sculptures that never melt decorate Christmas, and a fountain funded by Nicholas Flamel supposedly has healing and beautifying properties. Flamel and his wife Perenelle actually met as Beauxbaton students. The Philosopher's Stone came from a couple that met in this school's dining hall. The carriage that brings students is pulled by 12 Abraxan horses, each the size of an elephant, that only drink single malt whiskey. Elephant-sized horses that are premium whiskey alcoholics. You think there's a spell that makes whiskey come out of a wand. Now the famous alumni list. There's Vincent Duc de Trèfle-Piquis, who escaped the terror of the French Revolution by casting a concealment charm on his neck and pretending his head had already been cut off when he could have just apparated. And then there's Luc Millefeuille, described by Rowling as the infamous pastry maker and muggle poisoner, casually listed between a war hero and a revolution survivor like it was completely normal. The most elegant school in the wizarding world has alcoholic horses and a pastry serial killer among its distinguished alumni. A school having alcoholic horses and a serial killer is pretty wild, but at least Beauxbaton didn't have a founder who was probably murdered by her own successor, Durmstrang. Here is the same as Beauxbatons. The movies lied because Durmstrang is not an all-boys school. And yes, Victor Krum went here. The school was founded by Nerida Vulcanova, a great Bulgarian witch. Her death is described by Rowling as mysterious. The second headmaster, Harfang Munter, took over shortly after this mysterious death and immediately turned the school into an academy of dueling. The name is kind of a spoonerism of Sturm und Drang, a German literary movement about emotional turmoil. The castle only has 4 floors. It's somewhere in the far north of Europe. The place is basically impossible to get to, and if you did manage to find it, they'd hit you with memory charms, so you'd forget how you got there. And the best part, fire is only lit for magical purposes. No heating, no cozy fireplace. You literally study while shivering. The most famous alumni is not Krum, it's Gellert Grindelwald. expelled at 16 for, in Rowling's words, twisted dark experiments and near-fatal attacks on students. The school that teaches the dark arts looked at what Grindelwald was doing and said, "That's too much even for us." Before he left, he carved the Deathly Hallows symbol into a wall. Students afterwards started copying the symbol onto their books and bags to look cool, which led to violence from students whose families Grindelwald had destroyed. Gang tagging exists even in the wizarding world. Rowling wrote that the school has gone through a bit of a renaissance in recent times. The evidence? Victor Krum, the school that probably murdered its own founder, produced the most dangerous dark wizard before Voldemort, and literally teaches the dark arts, is doing just fine now because one guy is good on a broom. Hogwarts. I'm not going to explain what Hogwarts is. You know, 4 houses, sorting hat, magic castle, blah blah blah. What you probably don't know is this. The Bloody Baron, that Slytherin ghost, he unalived the Grey Lady, who is Helena Ravenclaw, Rowena's daughter. She rejected him, he stabbed her, then killed himself out of guilt. Salazar Slytherin built a secret chamber under the bathrooms and left a female basilisk in there. That thing stayed alive for 1,000 years, living off rats in the school's sewers. Voldemort cursed the Defense Against the Dark Arts position out of pure spite when Dumbledore wouldn't hire him. The curse lasted 30 years. Dumbledore knew it was cursed and kept hiring people without telling anyone. One of those professors was literally Voldemort himself on the back of Quirrell's head. And in the Battle of Hogwarts, around 50 people died, including Colin Creevey, supposed to have been evacuated, who snuck back in to fight. The safest place in the wizarding world. 1,000 years of murder, giant snakes, and curses. But hey, the food's good. Those are the 8 schools that have names. 3 schools officially exist in canon, registered with the International Confederation of Wizards, but nobody knows the name. The only clue is that a fan asked on Twitter where Australian wizards go to school, and Rowling replied that information will be revealed in due course. That was 2016. It's 2026. Due course never came. If you like this, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you want to know how wizarding power actually works, from the weakest wizard alive to Dumbledore level, that video is playing right now.